NASCAR says their new rules package will reduce downforce by 30%. And we're only 2 races into the season, but I figured we could look at who's hot and who's ice cold to begin 2023. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Some big breaking news from yesterday we're gonna react to today, but first, I've got a pretty cool toy I wanna show y'all. The Electric XP 3.0 is your powerful companion for new adventures. Warm weather will be here before you know it, or if you're like me and you live in Texas, it's already here. Cover up to 45 miles on one charge and reach speeds of up to 28 miles per hour. Electric's new motor is quieter with increased torque for more power, but with less noise. Optimized gearing and added suspension create their smoothest ride ever, even at higher speeds. And a stronger rear rack supports everything you need for day-to-day rides or longer trips. I'm a tall guy, I'm 6'7", so I'm always worried about how I'm gonna fit onto different things. And I'm more than comfortable on the Electric XP 3.0. I've gotten a lot of use the last couple of months, but now that the weather is getting warmer, I'm excited to use this thing more and more. Visit electricebikes.com for more information and to subscribe to their newsletter. That's the letter L, electricebikes.com for more information. Thank you to Electric E-Bikes for sponsoring this episode of Out of the Groove. First up, yesterday, Pennzoil revealed an all-new scheme for Joey Logano ahead of this weekend's Pennzoil 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And surprise, surprise, it's the same scheme that was leaked a few weeks back. I love the kind of throwback look, the black and yellow. I'm always a fan. I'm gonna miss the oversized Pennzoil logo from last year's scheme, which I think fit the new number placement on the next gen really, really well. But this new scheme is good too, a little more reminiscent of past Pennzoil race cars. I still feel like they need to put something in that space above the rear wheel. I don't know, leave a comment down below. Am I crazy? The big breaking news from yesterday is that NASCAR is implementing an all-new rules package for the road courses and many of the short ovals this season. Basically every track that also now has a wet weather package available. So that includes all the road courses, COTA, Sonoma, Watkins Glen, Charlotte Roval, Indy Road Course, Chicago Street, as well as Martinsville, New Hampshire, Phoenix, Richmond, and North Wilkesboro. Not Bristol and not Dover. NASCAR VP of Vehicle Performance Eric Jacuzzi explained why. Quote, so a couple of teams, and certainly the manufacturers, asked us not to include those tracks, Dover and Bristol, because they would essentially create a 4th aero package where they wouldn't have the flaps and wiper in that. And we said, okay, we had some decent events last year, we looked at our metrics and the stats were okay, so we went with that initial conservative approach. Just take the industry's concerns into our minds and kind of wait and see. Certainly, I think if it's a smash hit this year and we see a big difference, we'll definitely have to look at it again. So by my count, there are 11 tracks this year that will feature this new rules package. What are the exact changes? First, the 4-inch rear spoiler on the back of the car will be cut in half down to 2 inches. Some changes under the car, including the removal of the diffuser strakes and the removal of the engine panel strakes. They'll also be trimming the diffuser's outer fencing. According to Eric Jacuzzi, once again, of NASCAR, these changes, among others, will result in a 30% downforce reduction. This was his full quote. That basically adds up to about a 30% downforce reduction. We're now in a downforce level we haven't been at since pre-2000s for sure, like mid-90s. NASCAR also announced that Phoenix, coming up here in about 9 or 10 days, will feature an additional 50-minute practice session for the Cup Series to feel some of these new changes out. Big changes that will affect a large number of racetracks this season. Now, these changes were tested at Phoenix just a few weeks ago, earlier this offseason. Why did NASCAR bother to test a new short track and road course package? Quite simply because in their eyes, the cars just handled too well at these types of tracks last season. The wider wheelbase, the larger brakes led to drivers making fewer mistakes, which as a result led to fewer passing opportunities. Many drivers and fans have called on NASCAR to just increase the horsepower. Right now, these Cup cars are generating around 670, a little under 700 horsepower at these tracks. But NASCAR has been reluctant to increase the horsepower any further for a number of different reasons. Changing the size of the tires, of the wheels, or changing the width of the car would be very costly and would once again result in separate cars for short tracks and road courses versus intermediate, something that the next gen has effectively eliminated. The changes that NASCAR is implementing, removing the diffuser strakes, shortening the rear spoiler, in the grand scheme of things are cheap. They're not really adding anything new. For the most part, they're just taking existing parts off the cars. So that's why they're going forward with these changes, and drivers for the most part had positive things to say back in January during that test. Joey Logano, after testing a 2.5-inch spoiler, said, quote, "It seemed like the smaller spoiler directionally helped. It made us slide around a little bit more on the racetrack. It made us move up a little bit, which made us a little bit more racy." Christopher Bell was also enthusiastic after testing the 2-inch spoiler, which is what NASCAR is ultimately implementing. Bell said, quote, "We tried 3 packages and I couldn't tell one lick of difference. It all felt the exact same until we did the last package, the 2-inch package. I thought that was tremendously better and I really hope we go that direction." So the drivers sound enthusiastic, or at least encouraged that this is a positive direction NASCAR is going. Is Phoenix going to suddenly turn into, race of the year, a total barn burner? Probably not. But will it be, to use Logano's words, racier than last season? Perhaps. Hopefully the road courses are a little bit more competitive as well. I don't think these changes are going to remove shifting from a lot of these short tracks. I could be wrong about that. I guess we won't know until they start making laps. So there are still obstacles in the way. Denny Hamlin mentioned on his podcast, Actions Detrimental, that NASCAR is considering testing groove tires. We'll see if anything comes of that anytime soon. NASCAR clearly knows some work needs to be done on the short tracks and the road courses. They're not sitting on their hands. They're trying to do what they can without breaking the bank. There's an argument to be made that they should try some of the more expensive options because short tracks and road courses are just that important. But if these cheap solutions work or greatly improve the on-track product, then I think we'll all have to give NASCAR a round of applause, a pat on the back. I'm sure the team owners will for not making them go out and buy all new parts or redesign existing parts. But that's the latest news from yesterday. I'm cautiously optimistic that the racing at the short ovals and road tracks will be improved this year, but I guess we'll get our first taste in a couple weeks at Phoenix Raceway. Now, while I was writing up notes for this video, I decided to look at the point standings. I know, we're only 2 races in. The regular season goes on for 24 more weeks. Plus, of course, there's the 10-race playoffs, but I decided to look anyways just to see if there were any surprising names up near the top of the standings or any big names near the bottom. And some of the results I found were staggering, were shocking. So that encouraged me to do this little segment. What Cup Series drivers are red hot to begin the 2023 season, and which other drivers are ice cold? I think I can see my breath. No, I'm just kidding. Let's warm up first with Ross Chastain, who is on fire. He's currently your points leader, only by 1 point over Joey Logano. 3 stage wins already this season. He's also led the most laps of anyone. Great start for Ross Chastain. On the other end of that, Ryan Preece, unfortunately, is ice cold. He had a great run out in LA for the Clash until fuel pump problems forced him to settle for a 7th place finish. But Preece has since DNF'd the first 2 points races of the season. At both Daytona and Auto Club, he was just caught up in someone else's wreck. A stack up at Daytona and then that restart crash at Auto Club. Nothing he could really do, but as a result, he is now well outside the top 30 in points. How about Chris Buescher? Clash aside, where he and his teammate Brad Keselowski missed the show, Chris Buescher ran great at Daytona. He finished 4th in his duel. He was right there at the end of the Daytona 500 working with his teammate. Ended up finishing 4th there. And then he was a solid 13th at Auto Club last weekend. Right now, Chris Buescher is 36 points above the playoff cut line. I know, it's ridiculous that we're talking about the playoff cut line in March. It's March 1st. But hey, Chris Buescher every year is right around 19th or 20th in points. Any early advantage he can create, any buffer he can build on could be huge come June, July, and August. So just something to watch out for. Again, on the flip side, I hate to pick on these SHR cars, but Chase Briscoe, freezing out here. I'm not going to talk about Daytona. He was caught up in that same weird stack-up crash that Ryan Preece was. Really not his fault, nothing you could really do. But at Auto Club Speedway, the 14 car was terrible. Like, they were just slow, almost like they were down a cylinder. He was 20 seconds behind JJ Yaley and BJ McLeod early on. Like, he just fell a lap down, was off the pace. To their credit, they worked on it. I gave him an attaboy Sunday night because Briscoe did come back to finish 20th, which, considering how bad they were earlier in the day, that's not bad. That's a solid recovery, but still, A 20th place finish for a Stewart-Haas Racing driver who made the round of 8 last year is not anything to get excited about. Between that and the DNF at Daytona, they're in a deep points hole early on. Last year they got a win early in the season at Phoenix, coming up in a couple weeks. I don't want to see Chase Briscoe in a must-win situation early on in the season. He's good enough to consistently point his way into the top 16. They've got to right the ship fast, though, for that to still be possible. Only 4 drivers have finished inside the top 10 in both of the first 2 points races, and Daniel Suarez is one of them, 4th and 7th. The 99 car has the speed. Now, he's made some mistakes. In his dual race, he bump drafted Kyle Busch wrong and turned him in the outside wall. Suarez also got loose and spun out in the final laps of the 500. Still rallied back to get a top 10. And then this last weekend at Auto Club, he sped on pit road. His car was good enough that he was able to overcome that and get it back into the top 5. Great drive. But Suarez has to eliminate the mistakes. Despite the early mistakes, though, the fact that he's got 2 top 10s, he's sitting pretty in points early on. He's one of the drivers off to the hottest start. You'll never guess who is dead last in points. And when I say last, I mean they're behind JJ Yaley, they're behind Travis Pastrana, even Jimmy Johnson, who wrecked out of his only start. Tyler Reddick is frigid, ice cold to begin his 23XI Racing tenure, and you can't even really blame him for it. He's just been wrong place, wrong time. Car was unstable at Daytona, contact from Harvick sent him around, he crashed. And then at Auto Club, once again, he was a victim of the mid-race restart stack-up. So 2 DNFs, all of 4 points have been credited to Tyler Reddick through the first 2 weeks. 4 points. He is dead last of anyone who's made a Cup start this season. That is unfortunate. And then there's Joey Logano, who's currently 2nd in points. I mentioned him a moment ago. He's 1 point behind Ross Chastain. 2nd place and 10th place, not too bad. And I want to mention Alex Bowman as well as a driver who's hot. 5th place and 8th place. I mentioned only 4 drivers have finished in the top 10 in each of the first 2 races, and Alex Bowman quietly is one of them. 3rd in points so far, not bad at all for the driver that just signed a multi-year extension with Hendrick Motorsports. So there you have it, just a little snapshot of who's hot and who's cold to begin the season. A lot of those cold drivers I just mentioned, the 2 SHR guys, even Tyler Reddick, you know their season's going to get better. They're not going to finish the season outside the top 30 in points. But I was just floored when I realized, especially Reddick, I knew he'd had a couple of wrecks, he hadn't been super great to start the year, a lot of bad luck, whatever. But the fact that he only has 4 points to his name, that shook me. And so I wanted to kind of make a fun little segment out of it. Are there any other surprises towards the top or towards the bottom of the point standings that you figured I should mention? Of course, Kyle Busch, Ricky Stenhouse are obviously red hot because they've gotten wins, but I figured that was obvious, so I didn't want to mention them. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please leave it a like. If you're new to the channel and you love NASCAR, be sure to hit that subscribe button down here somewhere. And thank you, as always, to my Patreon supporters for your continued and very generous support of the show. And once again, thank you to Electric E-Bikes for sponsoring this episode. You can find out more by clicking that link down in the description. But yeah, thanks for watching. I will see you again very, very soon. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday.